Welcome back to Virteva's Let's Talk podcast, the show that analyzes the newest technologies in Microsoft Cloud and how to manage those technologies to help your business be successful. It's episode 28. My name is Scott Ledwan, and we once again got Holly Peterson back on the show. And on this week's episode for March 2025, we're going to be talking all about Agentic Declarative Copilot solutions. So I'm just kind of getting back I literally just came right off of a workshop before we got on this podcast. And we've had multiple workshops over the past couple of weeks here. And one of the questions that we're hearing from our users is, we want to know more about these Agentic Copilot solutions. What is a declarative agent and how do we build it? So we're going to be talking a lot about that on this show. And we're also going to be doing some demos of declarative agents, how to build them and interact with them using the enterprise version of Copilot in your environment. And you can also interact with them using the new consumption-based licensing. And we're also going to talk kind of at a high level of how you can further customize those agents by using things like Copilot Studio to extend the agent out and give it even more power by creating definitive actions built into it by you, while also using that generative AI filter on top of it. All right, so Holly, I talked a little bit about what I've been up to with kind of the workshops we've been doing around Copilot with our expeditionary package, and I've been having a blast doing those. Again, just came off of another fresh workshop, and I've got a bunch more planned next week. So super excited to help our next customer on their Copilot journey. Holly, what have you been up to since we last talked at the beginning of February?
A lot. I currently helping some of our longer term training customers with both Microsoft 365 and non-Microsoft 365 security initiatives that they're undergoing. As always, helping people not only on their first steps onto Microsoft 365, but getting into, really actually for real this year, we have to transition folks to Windows 11. And just like you, I am talking a whole lot about Copilot. So people have a lot of questions, and kind of what we're going to get into today, I think, people not only want to know how to get started with it, but all of the things that you can do with it. And today's topic is one that we're hearing a little bit of curiosity about.
Agentic.
Yes, Agentic Copilot.
Yep. Yeah. So again, not a lot in the Microsoft news cycle right now. We're coming off Ignite. They made the big announcement about Agentic Copilot, which to a lesser degree is kind of a, hey, Copilot Studios out there. Don't forget, nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah.
So they're trying to put a little bit more attention on that. And they're doing some of them. We talked about this on the last show, but like they're starting to build solutions for people. And they're trying to take the focus off of, hey, there's all these great apps out in the Teams app store or the Outlook app store that you can
Yeah.
use right now. They're trying to encourage third-party developers to, instead of you just type in three things and it runs a workflow, they want you to have a conversation with these things.
Right.
And what I wanted to do today is I wanted to give some examples around the difference between Copilot as a generalist, kind of that vanilla version of Copilot we've been talking about for the last year, and Copilot as a declarative agent, as
Right.
Microsoft has begun calling it, which is really more of a purpose-built Copilot to perform a specific task. So
Right.
I'm going to change screens here and we'll do a little transition and then we'll start going through. I'll talk through the demo about how, like, go ahead and as we're building stuff, like, challenge me on, like, hey, what could you put here? What could you do there? But yeah, we want to again, this is going to be a very demo driven episode for our audio listeners. So you may want to go
Right.
check this out on YouTube, but we'll try and give you the closed caption version of it as best we can.
Right. So declarative agents really it's all about customizing Copilot to meet unique business needs. So we know how Copilot can make an individual more productive, maybe small teams. We know how Copilot can condense web-based knowledge into relatable bite-sized chunks, taking place with these, like a natural language conversation. But what if you could train Copilot on specific data and to make it behave in a very specific way to help people in your organization with IT support, product support. Really, the sky's the limit. As long as you have the data and the ability to build an agent, you can make kind of your business needs be fulfilled by a Copilot agent.
Yep. So what we're looking at on the screen here, and I'll enlarge it so it's a little bit easier to see, is this is just kind of the Copilot that we've gotten used to over the last year. So whether you're using kind of the regular Copilot and you're just using it under your personal Microsoft subscription, or whether you're used to kind of logging in with the enterprise version and or the business version, things have changed a little bit, but not too much. We've spent some time on previous shows talking a little bit more specifically around this side menu up here that you can expand, and it's been starting to be filled up with some agents. Previously, these were called plugins, and as you're using these co-pilots, you've been able to see a recent chat, but not do a whole lot more with it. So agents has become plugins, and now you can see that you have the ability to kind of get more agents. And right
Mhm.
now, the experience to get more agents is just kind of you click the button and it says, "Hey, we're going to take you out to that app store." And this is going to be very familiar. Is if you've done this in Teams before, if you've done it in
Mhm.
an Outlook, you're seeing kind of the same thing here. Is just, hey, here's all the agents that are available.
Yep.
Microsoft is in the process of trying to work with partners to transition this a little bit more so that instead of just an agent that runs a workflow, is there's more kind of generative and declarative agents built in there.
Mhm.
So you can see that Microsoft has built a few of these. You can also filter these to make them a little bit easier. So
Right.
if we say Microsoft 365 certified, you can see, hey, these are ones that Microsoft actually said, hey, these are great. We've tested them. They're fantastic. And then you'll also notice that as soon as you pull that off, there's also just a lot of other, as we would call it, kind of like was the old term that they used when the Nintendo Wii was popular 20 years ago, is like the Wii Shop shovelware. Is just, hey, here's all these $2 games in here that they may be okay, but they also may not be great. So
Right.
as you're using these third party pre-built ones, is your mileage may vary. Even as we kind of look at the ones that are specifically built by Microsoft, is you can see that there's different ones that Microsoft built and then kind of the different agents in here. And I know that there's one I'm specifically looking for because I saw it earlier. um Writing coach. So we click on writing coach and we can actually see what Microsoft's done, what they intend you to do with this app. And I was seeing this earlier and I don't see it now, but there was ratings on these apps. And I think that in the Teams version, you can see the ratings, but for whatever
Mhm.
reason, I can't see them in this version. That writing coach specifically, which has been ranked by users, was on the lower side. So it's something that Microsoft kind of put together to kind of quickly get you moving along on it. But maybe there, if you're at a different organization, you're building Teams apps or you're building something internally for your own organization, is maybe you can build a better version of that by experimenting
Right.
around with these different agents that are available, um, and giving them out to your own organization. So there's some cool stuff that you can do with that. But I just wanted to kind of give a quick highlight on agents. So these agents are finding their way, as we talked about on the last show, into different Microsoft 365 apps. So for example, if you open up Word and you open up kind of that side panel there, we'll go to word.office.com. We start a new document. When we pop out that Copilot side panel, is you're going to see the ability to interact with those agents in Word as well. So you get your add an image, your view prompt gallery prompt, which pops up and kind of gives you that old Copilot lab or the new Copilot prompt gallery experience. And you also get the ability to create an agent. So right now, there's two agents available in here. First one being the Crossviews HR assistant, which is one that I built. And then there's the visual creator. But if you wanted to get more agents, you can click on that button right there, and it will basically open up what I just showed you on the previous screen. And then you could add that agent directly into a Microsoft 365 app to extend the ability of Copilot outside of just the generalist component and give it more of a declarative function. All right. So let's go back over to Copilot and let's walk through how you would create an agent. So, create an agent, it's fairly easy. You click the create button, it opens up kind of this Copilot Studio-esque like pop-up, and it allows you to start building an agent directly from that page in Copilot. So, I'm going to expand the window out here to make it a little bit easier to see. You can start with the career coach, idea coach, learning coach, and then there's a bunch of additional templates, again, that Microsoft has kind of built to get you started. You can also start by just typing a message. So I'm going to kind of go through the process that I went through to build the CrossViews HR, the Virteva HR agent. And from there, we'll show you how it's built, how you can change configurations, and then we'll actually pop over to the version that I previously built and kind of go step by step through it. So, Holly, we're building an HR agent.
Yep.
How do you want me to start the conversation?
Well, when you go in to build an agent, you really have to describe what you want your agent to do. And the number one thing I would say here is just like any interaction with Copilot, we want to be very descriptive. So Scott could maybe do kind of like what a not so good great example looks like, but also what that really complete example looks like. The other
Mhm.
thing I would say is, you know, when you're coming to this point to when you're ready to kind of build an agent, if you want to use some of your company's data to fuel your agent's knowledge, you kind of want to have an idea of what it's going to look at as well. But yeah, this is the number one thing is we're not doing a Google search here. We are writing out a pretty complete description of what we want our agent to be able to do.
So what I'm asking it here is I'm saying, so it's asking me right up top. It's saying, hey, I'm here to help you build the agent. You can start by describing what you want the agent to do. So I'm telling it, I want to build an agent for employees to be able to quickly ask and answer questions and answer those questions about human resources policies, documents, et cetera. So this is kind of the entry level prompt. Again, we've talked a
Yeah,
lot about good prompting behavior is you
yeah.
want to be very clear on what you want it to do. You want to set an expectation for what
Mhm.
the responses are going to be. And then as you're going to see as we go on here, you're going to want to build context and content pointers along the way. So all of this is being done right now. Very really there it's being done with no code right now. So we're giving Copilot the opportunity to start building it. It answered, it says, great. Now let's determine a name for your agent. How about HR assistant? That's fantastic. But if I want to change it, new HR experience agent. We're going to call it the new HR experience agent, just because I want to give it a name slightly different than the last one that I created. So it goes, oh, great. First, what specific tasks or goals should this agent accomplish? For example, providing quick answers to HR policies and assisting employees with finding HR documents. So let's say those two work great, but can you also help with Holly? What else do we want it to help us with?
I'm trying to think of something beyond, I would say uh, answer questions about company holidays as
Yeah.
well. Trying to think of, I don't work in HR, so I'm probably the worst person to say what are frequently asked questions. But yeah, I think company holidays is something I hear a lot.
Okay, so we'll have it help us with answering questions around company holidays. And how about remote work? So we'll let Copilot do its thing. And you can kind of see here too, is it's going to build out kind of a set of different like pre-built questions here on the right to get people started. So again, if you don't know how to start building your own prompt, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to give employees the ability to just click the most normal buttons, very similar that you would do if you were building something in like Power Power Virtual Agent two,
Yeah.
3, 4 years ago, is you have to kind of set it up with, hey, here's what you can ask, and then here's how you respond. The big difference is when you're working with these agents and you're adding the generative AI layer to it, is it can think outside the box using its own language
Yes.
model, extensible connectors, and the internet if you give it access to. So it got back to us here and it's saying, all right, let's define any limitations or boundaries for your new HR experience agent. Are there any specific types of questions or documents that the agent should avoid? So, for example, do not provide legal advice or avoid answering personal HR issues. I think that those two are probably pretty good, Holly. But is there anything else that you'd add to that?
Um, we could say non-HR questions about, or maybe specific job duties. We really want to stay as neutral as possible and within the bounds of HR's realm as we can.
Right. And as always, as you type and talk, you can't actually type without there being typos. So corrected those, and we're going to send this through. All right. So your agent, the new HR experience, is now set up to help employees with HR policies, documents around company holidays, and give some information around remote work. It's also going to avoid any sort of legal advice, personal HR issues, non-specific HR questions, and questions around specific job duties. So we're basically done with the generative experience here of building it using chat. Now we can take it a step further and we can go into the configuration section. And again, this is not something that you have to do, but it may be something that you want to do to further customize the agent. So it gives you the ability to apply a template up top. We kind of have already built this how we want to. So we're not going to use the template. All the template would do would essentially change some of these instructions and descriptions. So you have the ability to kind of come in here and change the icon if you want. So if I want to change the icon to, let's see what type of pictures I have laying around, to Josh Allen. There it is, Holly. It showed up. It's March. The season has officially begun. I got it in there. So if I want to change the
Now,
picture of this to
now we
Josh
know what
Allen,
Josh Allen does in his off season.
yes,
He answers
NFL
HR
MVP, Josh
questions.
Allen. We've got him in there. You can see the icon. That actually looks pretty good. I might build a football agent at some point here now, just so that I can reuse that image.
I'm going to tell
Um,
Dan to revoke your license.
Um, you can update the description here if you want to, and then also you can update the instructions. So the instructions here again are just kind of that bullet list of what you want the agent to do and what you don't want it to do. So in the configuration areas where this gets extra interesting and extra useful, this is really where you start turning it from the vanilla agent into the declarative agent. So you have the ability to add knowledge here. You can do this directly by kind of browsing your environment and looking at the different sites that are available to you and just checking it. Or you have the ability that you can just enter a URL here. So I grabbed our human resources URL just to show it for the example. I'm just going to drop it right in there. And now it knows that it has access to the root of our human resources site. So if I click on that site, we can see what it's going to have access to. So pretty much anything on
Mhm.
this front page, it's going to have access to some of the different feeds that are happening. And then it's also going to have access to the different site libraries and files. So if I open up the documents screen on this page, basically anything that lives within the document library on this HR site, this declarative agent is going to have access to. And it's important to actually say that too, because if you have old, stale, out of date information that's in one of your sites that you're pointing it at, you're not going to get the best experience with Copilot or that agent. So you're going to want to make sure that you're cleaning up your data regularly so you only have the most relevant and contextually correct information available. So we're going to point it at
This
HR. Yeah, go ahead.
this is something that I just really want to point out for people. So you can add up to 20 sources. It could be your public website. It could be internal SharePoint. It could
Yep.
be a team. You know, there's so many different sources you can use to essentially train this agent to work. But if you don't have that data to come to the table with, or as Scott said, it's a little out of date, or you've been collecting every version of the company FAQ, the agent just soaks all that up. So we really want to make sure that your data is set up in a way to be used really well by these agents. And I can't stress enough how important it is, once you've built this, to test it and refine, not just when you first launch it, but all the time, making sure that whatever you put out in your environment in front of your end users or customers is giving them the answers that you want it to give.
Yeah, and when we get to the Copilot Studio section too, you'll see that you can actually see how people are interacting with the agent.
Yes.
Very similar again to Power Virtual Agents, so that you can maintain and edit and improve on that agent over time. This isn't something that you just set and forget. It's something that you're probably going to want to have someone somewhat dedicated to maintaining these and taking feedback requests and making changes as time goes on. So I have the ability that I can also set this agent with the ability to look out to the internet. This is going to really depend on the type of agent that you're building. So again, what you are giving the agent access to, so human resources in this case, is not going to go out to the internet. Copilot does not send things out to the internet. It stays inside your tenant. However, if you want to add additional information and pull that in from the outside, you may want to do this. However, adding to that, if you're pulling from the internet and you are finding conflicting information, perfect example is if Martin Luther King Day is not a holiday for your company, but it is a holiday recognized by other companies, Copilot might go out to the web and conflate that data and confuse itself and be like, oh no, yeah, Crossviews or Virteva has off on Martin Luther King Day, which we don't. And it got that either because it pulled from web or it pulled that out of its own language model. And those are kind of some of those additional tweaks that we mentioned that you may have to do as time goes on. So we're not going to
Right.
give it access to the web for right now. There are some other abilities that are coming soon, such as actions, which is the ability to create specific tasks and capabilities and automations within your agent. That's not quite available yet, so we're not going to be demoing that today. But kind of think of it like as the quick replies that show up, like in Teams, that give you suggestions for how to respond to a message. Or in, again, kind of going back to PVA, Power Virtual Agents, is you would type it something and then it would give you 3 suggestions of, hey, these are the next things I can do in the workflow. And if those didn't work for you, you would say, I need other help. And then it would just it would stall and say, hey, sorry, can't help you. Look at this FAQ document. Maybe that'll have the answer. Again, where Copilot Studio and Copilot agents are supposed to be better about this is they have access to the generative large language models that can help fill in those gaps and get you steered in the right direction. Code interpreter and image generator are some additional capabilities. Again, depending on your use case of agent, you may want to add these, but generally for the agents I've built so far, I haven't. And then you kind of see your starter prompts over here. These are these prompts. So if you want to delete one or change it or add some new, you can, with the exception of you can only have 6 at the moment. So that might get expanded. We could also move them around. So if we're getting a question about remote work fairly regularly, you could just add it and it's the first one in the row now. So our agent is built. We would hit the create button and then that would kind of basically take us to the screen where we can start using. We can even play with it here if we want. So if I want to say, can I work remotely on Fridays? It's using the information that it has on the HR site, so our employee manual basically. And it's going to say, hey, yeah, can we work on that? And hey, it gave us an answer. Yes, you can work remotely on Fridays according to the Crossviews handbook, newest version, by the way. Crossviews offers remote flexible work options. And then it gives you a link or a footnote to get you to that actual policy. So again, I'm going to close this at this point because we've already created this. And then we're actually going to go into the Crossviews agent that I created. So Holly, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's a question you got for Crossviews and Virteva HR?
I want to know about travel policies.
So the previous way of finding out what the travel policy would be is you have to find your way to the HR SharePoint site. You have to find yourself to the right location. You have to find yourself to the right folder, and then it'll bring you directly. And then when you finally find the document, then you have to scroll through and you have to read the entire document. So this basically looked at that travel policy. So it pulled up the expense policy from July 2020, and it talks about travel itineraries, flight information, frequent flyer programs, and other related expenses. So if I wanted to add this on, by the way, for our visual listeners, absolutely no idea what that picture is. It must be in the actual document.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
pull that
guessing
up
that
to
it's
kind of take a
there's
look.
either an image or it's picking up something about the
Yep.
fact that it's a PDF or something.
Yeah. But in this case, so it let us, we can click directly into that and you could see it was like an 8-page document. Is you
Mhm.
normally have to go through and find what you're looking for, but the AI
Right.
found it. So let's see. Let's ask another question. Can you me more about how to submit an expense report for my trip? Someone in Minnetonka. I just had to do this last week. If I didn't necessarily look this up or know how to do it, I would have had to go through and find the expense report policy and do all this work myself. Now I can just ask this Copilot agent, hey, I was just recently in Minnetonka visiting. Can you tell me how to submit an expense report for my trip? And we see how quickly it came back and answer that. So I need to gather my receipts. I need to log into our NetSuite application, which is where we do our time management. I need to submit it within 30 days, important to know. And then I also need to make sure that I'm not only holding on to the documentation, but I'm also attaching the receipts and then it goes through its approval process. So, just a couple examples of how you can use this HR agent. We'll give it one last question here is, can you tell me when our next company paid holiday is? And it told us the next company paid holiday is Memorial Day, observed on May 26, 2025. And then again, it gave us a link directly to that PDF so I can see all the holidays. And then if this was a long PDF, I could also interact with Copilot directly in the PDF if I have a Copilot license. So
Yeah.
just some helpful hints there. I wanted to go a little bit deeper here. So we're going to start a new chat to clear that out. And I want to talk about the Copilot Studio piece. We're not going to go super deep into this because, man, you can go deep on Copilot Studio, Holly. But we will look at another one of the agents that I built just to kind of give an example of how you can further customize. So I'm going to go up to create an agent again, and I'm going to change this to the to view all agents.
And Scott, I do have to drop. All right.
All right, we're gonna look
Thanks,
at Copilot
everyone.
Studio agents, but Holly has to go. So, Holly, again, thanks for being on the show, and we'll catch up next time.
Thanks a lot.
All right, so we're gonna head over to Copilot Studio, and we're gonna take a look at how you can actually build declarative agents using some additional capabilities. This ability is also going to be coming to the kind of that front page copilot.microsoft.com experience in the very near future. So you'll be able to build agents on that side and then move them to Copilot Studio and back and forth. But for right now, I want to kind of give an example of a Virteva help desk agent that I have built out. So I'm going to click on that agent in Copilot Studio. It's going to load it up here. And what you can do with this here, again, is it's very similar to what we just went through. And the Copilot Studio piece of this isn't necessarily a lot much different than what it was months ago, but there are some new pieces that are being added onto it. So I created this Virteva help desk agent, gave it a description, gave it some basic level instructions, and then I also gave it some orchestration options as well. So orchestration essentially in this agent means that it can use generative AI to determine how to best respond to users in different events. So you can turn that off and it kind of turns it into just a very basic kind of dumb agent. When you're adding that additional generative AI layer into it in Copilot Studio, is you're giving the agent kind of like a supercharge so it can be more useful to the users who are using it. As we mentioned, you can go through and you can get analytics on it for the last 7 days. So you can see how many people have used the agent, how engaged were they, what was the overall satisfaction score by looking at the thumbs up or the thumbs down button. And then you have your ability that here's where you can kind of plug your knowledge items into it. So very similar to what we were looking at on the previous demo is you have the ability that you can add your own knowledge sources in. So for this one, I have the ability to not just add a SharePoint agent or a website to it, a SharePoint site or a website to it, but I can also add third-party connectors. So for this example, for our service desk, is I gave it the ability to look at different knowledge sources in our ServiceNow instance. You do have to connect those, but once they're connected, it'll now not only be able to see knowledge base, but it'll also have the ability to create tickets, to look up requests in ServiceNow, to provide updates, to allow you to put work notes on it and let you kind of do it directly from the pane of glass that you're in with that agent. You can get even deeper in your conversation topics here. Again, kind of very similar to PVA, but this is a little bit more detailed. So here we have our custom messages that we created, and then some basic system messages that were created in here. Actions, again, brand new. Not a whole lot to talk about on this just yet because Microsoft hasn't fully rolled it out. But if I add actions into this agent, is it's going to be kind of very similar to things that you can do with Power Automate today. So the featured ones are some Excel functions, some get the weather forecast. So if I wanted to add an action in here for get the weather, it's going to use the MSN weather plugin. I'm going to click on next, and then I give it direct action. So I'm going to say get the forecast for a specific period of time, and then I can either use user authentication or Copilot author authentication. So Copilot author authentication would be if I attached this agent to, let's say, a service account, is I could use that to do the automated inputs and responses. I'm not going to attach that as an action just yet, just due to the fact that this is in preview and it's probably a little buggy for the demo. But again, as we mentioned, some additional things you can do in Copilot Studio is you can see the activity of who's using the agent, when they were using it, what questions they asked. You can see the analytics behind it as well. So if this was being used, we'd have a graph here and some additional stuff like knowledge source uses in preview right now. So it would tell us what knowledge bases were being used, how often, and then you'd also be able to see user feedback on it. From a channels perspective, you can also control where this is going to be available. So if I say that I want to make this available in Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365, I basically add this agent in again in preview, save it, and then republish the agent. So just kind of gives you a little bit of additional idea of what you can do behind the scenes. I'm going to ask it a question here just to kind of show what it looks like when it's thinking behind the scenes. So I'm going to ask it a question here. You find, so I'm going to ask it, can you help me find a knowledge article about HP printer troubleshooting? So we're going to see kind of this screen in the middle change to an activity map, and it's going to show you exactly what Copilot's doing. So if I have given access to this agent to multiple web page sources, such as like HP's support page or Microsoft Learn, things like outside of ServiceNow, it would also look for that information. But right now, what it's doing is it's trying to look for information only in the knowledge base articles that I gave it access to. And then we can kind of see the output. So it used its large language model and it used the knowledge base articles that were available to it. And then it gave me some very basic kind of step-by-step instructions on how I can actually troubleshoot that printer based on based on the input that I gave it. And again, a lot of this has to do with how strong is your prompt. So we'll give it one more prompt here. We're going to say create a ServiceNow ticket for me about a printer issue. So we'll give it time to think. We can see that it's going through, and we can see now it's firing on one of those topics and actions that's in there. So it's going to say, hey, give me a short title for the issue. And I'm going to say printer PC load letter. Again, it's updating this right now, and then it's going to fire that request in the service now. I have to give it a full description. So I'm going to say the printer cannot print, displaying an error to kind of extend the description on there. So we've got a title for the ticket. We've got a description for the ticket. And now it's asking me again, what do you want to do? Do you want to create this? I'm going to say, go ahead and create the ticket. It created me a service request number. I'm going to copy that. And then we can see kind of across the board here, everything that it did. So you can see that the activity feed is really kind of filling out here. There's a lot of information around exactly what it's doing, but we can see the trigger, the redirect, we can see all the questions that went into it, and then we can kind of see how it went through the different connector values and how it updated. We also have the ability that as we're looking at some of these advanced inputs in here, that we could even go in and produce more functionality, more information to kind of go in there. We can update the topics. We can look at the comments that we leave in here. There's a lot more that, again, you can do under the hood in Copilot Studio. This isn't meant to be a master class on it, but it's just meant to kind of look at how you can extend those declarative agents that you're creating and make things a little bit more useful. So what we'll do next is we'll go kind of take a look at that ServiceNow ticket just to verify that it actually created. So we've come over to ServiceNow. I just pasted the incident in. We can actually see the exact matches there. I'm going to click on that incident in ServiceNow. We're going to load that up. So by using that declarative agent, I was able to create an incident. It created it under my name. Again, you can kind of tie that to individual user authentication or tie it to a service account. And then again, you can further customize that agent. So if we wanted it to automatically fill in phone number information or location information or automatically drop it into an assignment group, we can do that extra work in Copilot Studio to make this process even more automated than it is. But this is just kind of an example of what it would look like to use a more powerful declarative agent through Copilot Studio to accomplish a task such as letting customers look up knowledge information, troubleshoot their own problem, or create a help desk ticket rather than putting in a call to your help desk. Again, another way to deflect from an IT service management standpoint. Thanks again for tuning in, and thank you all for listening to our March episode of the Let's Talk podcast. If you want to learn more about the recent Agentic announcement that Microsoft's made, you can visit the links in the show notes. As always, we try and provide those as well as a division by chapter across the episode, so it's a little bit easier to kind of get to what you want. We've also been getting back into the habit of publishing clips onto the channel, so if you're not unable to sit down and watch a full 30-45 minute episode of our podcast or listen to it, you can visit our YouTube page and you can click on the individual chapters that we release to just hone in on what specifically you want to know about. If you have questions or you need help with implementing or you need help with training, which is something that Holly, you do a great job at with all of our customers around any of the Microsoft 365 modern work, security, or Copilot features, Virteva is a leading IT managed service and security partner, and we are more than happy to help you with not only Copilot, but any of your IT needs from a professional services standpoint to a managed services standpoint. To get in contact with us, you can email us at letstalk@virteva.com, or you can visit our website by visiting www.virteva.com. If you want even more Microsoft news while you're over on our website, you can sign up for our Microsoft 365 newsletter that generally has a pretty good grasp of all the different topics in bite-sized pieces that are being announced by Microsoft, as well as things that may affect your bottom line, such as licensing changes that are happening this year and other solutions and partnership announcements that we have. If you made it to the end of the video, again, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate that. If you can share either the audio podcast or the YouTube version with folks within your network, that's also helpful for spreading the word. And as always, it really helps us a lot if you hit those like buttons and those subscribe buttons to continue to help us grow the channel. Holly, again, thanks for being here. And again, thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next month. Take it easy.